Hey everybody, it's me, Stuart. Today we're going to read a story about Curious George called The Donut Delivery. I love donuts. Here we go. George is always a good monkey when he's asleep, but no monkey wants to sleep through Saturday. This was a Saturday that cried out for something special. Donuts, the man with the yellow hat announced. That was special. Next to bananas, donuts were George's favorite food. How about eggs with those donuts? The man asked George. Please count how many we have and write it down. But when George looked for the eggs, he found there were none left to count. There are no eggs? The man asked. Why didn't you write 0? George didn't know how. The man with the yellow hat sat George down with some paper and a pad. See, George, the man said, 0 alone means no eggs, none. But 0 after other numbers makes them mean a lot more. If we put a 0 after 1, that's 10. Write another 0, and that's 100. George stared hungrily at the zeros. They reminded him of donuts. Yeah, they do. Luckily for George and his empty stomach, they headed out to buy the groceries. The man stopped in front of a market. He said, I'll go in here and buy eggs while you get the donuts, okay? George nodded as the man wrote down his order. The note said, 1 dozen donuts, please. As George headed to the donut shop, Charky, a friendly little dog from the neighborhood, joined him. She wanted to play, but George was too busy to stop. So she followed him into the shop. George noticed that his order only had a little 1 on it. That did not seem like a lot for a monkey who was really hungry. George saw a pencil on the counter. He grabbed it and drew a 0 after the 1. Now the note read, 10 dozen donuts. That's a lot of donuts. Then George wrote down another 0 before Miss D came to take his order. George, Charky, good to see you. Is that an order for your friend with the yellow hat? George handed over the paper. 100 dozen donuts, she exclaimed. That's our biggest order ever. Misty hurried away to tell her husband in the kitchen. Oh my. Soon, Misty started piling box after box on the counter. George grew worried. He hadn't realized what his zeros would do. 99, 100. You can't possibly carry them all, George, Misty said. Lucky for you, we have a delivery service. Misty bustled off to get some help, but George did not wait around. He grabbed 1 dozen donuts and ran away with Charky. George was not quick enough. Mrs. D's entire family was soon right behind him with their towering boxes of donuts. He must be running late. We took too long to make the donuts, Misty cried as she rushed after George. When George reached his apartment, he jumped from balcony to balcony trying to get home as quickly as possible. At first, George thought he was safe from the donut delivery. He sat down to catch his breath after running all the way home, but it wasn't long before the doorman showed the D family right up to his apartment. Soon 100 boxes of donuts crowded the room. George looked around. He had to do something before his friend came home. Suddenly, he had an idea. When the man with the yellow hat walked in carrying his groceries, he saw only 1 box of donuts on the table. Those smell so good, the man said. I'm sorry I didn't ask you to buy more than 1 dozen. Was George able to hide all those donuts? Not for long. George explained to the man that he had added some zeros to the order. Well, at least you learned something, the man said. But what are we going to do with all these donuts? They came up with a good solution. George got 1 dozen donuts like he was supposed to, and some hard-working firefighters got the rest. How many left, George? The man asked at the end of the day. George ate the last donut from a box and held up his fingers in an O shape. 0. The end. Wow. That George is always getting into trouble. 100 dozen donuts, that's a lot of donuts. I'm glad they figured out what to do with them all. Alright, well thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. See ya!